Okay. Commissioner Abraham.
Present.
Commissioner Galt.
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Mayor Kaler.
Present. Tonight we have Pastor Nathan Williams here with the West End Baptist Church to help us with our invocation. If you'll come forward, please. And then for our Pledge of Allegiance, we have Landon Ross, and he's a Paducah Tillman High School sophomore on the speech team.
Would you join me in prayer? Father, we come before you and thank you that you hear our prayers and that for being a holy and just God. And I thank you for this city, for our country, and the many privileges and freedoms that we have, Father. And we ask that you would continue to bless us with those freedoms. Father, your ways are higher than our ways, and you are a wise God. I ask that you would provide your wisdom and your guidance to all here in this place tonight, as well as all who serve our city, Lord, each and every day, every man and woman, Father, that you would give them your wisdom and guidance. And it's in your holy name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
There are none.
Okay, tonight we have a recognition. It's an Eagle Scout project. Mark, if you want to come on up.
We've got a couple of things. Last week we had our state conference, and again, Paducah Park Services was recognized as the outstanding department in the state. And there you go. In our category, our Class 1 category, which is the larger of all of those, so from Louisville on down to us, we're kind of in the small side as far as that range, but we're the Class 1 ranked outstanding department in the state.
Mark, have you retired that trophy?
3 years in a row. No, I'm going to try to catch up with John Perkins. He's got about 23 in a row on his wall, so I don't know that I'll make that, but it'd be nice. This is 3 years in a row, and we're really proud of it. And it's for reasons like I'm here tonight, and the partnerships that we have when we apply for this award each year that helps us build our resume. And it's the type of talent that the folks from Paducah support us with. And I'm going to introduce Noah DeWeese, Eagle Scout from Troop 200, and he's going to explain something that it may not sound like a big deal, but it really is. It's an orienteering course, and this will bring a lot of people to come visit and in Paducah on a regular basis for years and years to come. So.
For my Eagle Scout project, I designed and constructed an orienteering course at Noble Park, and with the help of my troop, Mark Ashburn and Mark Thompson, it's finally completed. What is an orienteering course? An orienteering course is a course set up with predetermined points in which the orienteer must find in a specific order. You can do it with a map and compass, or you can do it with a GPS. Who's going to use it? Primarily Boy Scouts, so they can fulfill mandatory requirements to rank up and advance towards their Eagle Scout rank. Also, orienteers who do it regularly as a sport or a hobby, and also people who just want to learn how to become an orienteer. We don't have one here locally, and the closest one is an hour away, and Noble Park Orienteering course will allow local troops to fulfill requirements and cut down on the drive. Here's the course. As you can see, if you can see start, there's two separate courses. There's one that goes through the park, and there's one that goes into the woods on the Greenway Trail. Here are the GPS points for your phone if you don't want to use a map and compass, if you just want to find it on your phone. And as you can see on the left, the picture are the points that we put in the ground, and you walk around and you try to find them. And on the right is the sign, which I have right here. Here's the scorecard, which you walk around with your phone or the map and compass. And when you find your point, you write the letter of the block in the ground on here, and you check on the website to see if you got it correctly and found them in the correct order. The website link will be uploaded soon to paducahky.gov, and click under the Noble Park tab. Questions?
Great project.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Noah.
I'm going to tell everybody the website is up.
So is this something that the word will go out to other scout troops, and
Do what?
you'll get the word out to the other scouting troops,
It's
and
spread pretty fast. It's already spread, I think.
So how many were in your Eagle group to do this?
I think we might have a few here. If any of you guys participated and helped setting it up, could you guys stand up or something? Maybe none of them here, but there were about 8 or so.
You guys can stand up.
Yeah.
There were about 8 or so scouts, plus Mark Ashburn was one of the main people, and my dad, and Mark Thompson, of course, helped set it up and complete it.
Good deal.
Very good work. And
Closest orienteering course before this was
About an hour away in, which town was it?
There's one in southern LBL park, but it's not this long.
There wasn't one at Royce in Manchester, was there? I don't think there was. There was, at least in the 90s.
I don't think there is
I
anymore.
don't think so, yeah.
did
Great.
they have those back in the 1990s?
Yes, they have in the 1990s.
that's back
We
when
didn't have
all they
GPS.
had was compass, right?
we had just compasses. No GPS.
This will bring, and there's going to be troops that decide, hey, I want to go to Paducah instead. And so just like our skate park and all of those activities, people come from the region and they'll be here, stop, have lunch, dinner, and enjoy the other things that Paducah has to offer besides getting their upgrade into their rank as far as scouting is concerned.
Okay.
It's also possible the military will use it.
Wow.
And we have the Coast Guard who always works out in the parks and that sort of thing, so that may be something they add once they find out about it locally, and then it'd be great to have all of those folks here.
It's a nice addition.
Well, I always say that some of the best things that we have in Paducah are citizen-driven, and you saw something that we needed here in Paducah, and you took the initiative to do it. And as Mark said, this will be something we'll have here for years, and we'll always remember you for that, even when you go to college and then come back to Paducah. And I know your parents are very proud of you, so thank you.
Say, Noah, when were you at Philmont?
Oh,
You got the Philmont badge.
This past summer.
Did you come back over the tooth?
Yeah, we went on the tooth. It was
Great, isn't it?
it was a hike. It was exhausting.
Did Mark go? Ashburn?
Yeah.
All right. How many times you been, Mark?
16.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
I've been 3.
We have a special guest here tonight, Mr. Robert Dafford, and he's here this week with a book signing event. If you'll come forward, please. It's a beautiful book. We had the pleasure of seeing that today.
I'll just quickly, I'm Robert Dafford, Philip Gould. Most of you know of our work on the flood wall. And Philip Gould is a very well-known author, photographer primarily, also from Lafayette, Louisiana, and the University of Louisiana Press and Philip have produced this book about my work, and we are busy doing signings around Paducah today, and we would like to present a copy to the city,
Well, thank
to the
you.
city of Paducah, for you
Nice.
to have
That's
to show
nice.
dignitaries or visitors to come here.
Very
We
nice.
also would like to present a book to the citizens of Paducah, which will be at the library.
Oh, well,
for
thank
everyone
you.
to see.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for
Would you sign it for us?
it's.
We signed it? All right, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert.
And thank you. I always tell you how wonderful it is to work here and visit here every time we come. Everybody's just so great to us, so thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have to go to books and
Do a book signing.
We're on our way to Books A Million to do our last signing tonight, and they will have the book as well as the quilt shop, the quilt museum, and another other shops in town.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, very good.
And Paducah is featured in the book.
Of course it is. Tonight I have a presentation. If Dr. Andrew Wood would come forward, please.
My goodness.
I have the great pleasure of presenting Dr. Andrew Wood with the Duke of Paducah.
My God.
I hereby confer this honor with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto appertaining, and testimony whereof I have caused these letters to be made patent in the seal of the city to be hereunto affixed, done at Paducah the 18th day of November, in the year of our Lord, 2014, Gail Kaler, Mayor. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Wood, for all of your contributions to our community and for your wonderful work that you do out at the college. I was so impressed with the article about you in the paper.
I was impressed too.
Would you like to say
I
something?
would like to say something. You know, I just have to remind you people, a lot of people were born here in Paducah and they didn't have a choice. I made the choice. And I think it was one of the best choices I've ever made. It's
Great.
been lovely living here. Wonderful living here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And tonight we have a special guest with us, which is, she's not really a guest, she's an employee of the city of Paducah, and she has received a wonderful honor. So I would like for Officer Melissa Dillon to come forward, please. Officer Dillon also serves on our anti-bullying task force, and we certainly appreciate her service there. Officer Melissa Dillon has been with the police department since 2003, and she was recognized last Friday at the Kentucky Women's Law Enforcement Network Annual Conference in Louisville, and she was named 2014 Officer of the Year. And I think what made it so special is you were nominated by a fellow police officer,
Yes, ma'am.
Gretchen Morgan, in recognition of her work with the police department's successful traffic enforcement unit. So we are here tonight to thank you, Officer Dillon, for your hard work with the Paducah Police Department and your dedication for ensuring the safety of our citizens. Would you like to say something?
It's an honor to be recognized by a fellow coworker, and it was. I felt privileged to be able to work on the traffic unit because it's something that I'm very passionate about.
So we've seen a big reduction in collisions and also in the crime rate with the program that you've worked on. So we want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a proclamation tonight Whereas the government of Paducah, Kentucky celebrates our local small business and contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 23 million small businesses in the United States, and they represent about 90% of American employer firms. They create more than two-thirds of the new jobs and generate 46% of private gross domestic product. And whereas small businesses employ over 55% of the working population in the United States, and whereas 89% of consumers in the United States agree that small businesses contribute positively to the local economy by supplying jobs and generating tax revenue. And whereas 87% of the consumers in the United States agree that small businesses are critical to the overall economic health of the United States. And whereas 93% of consumers in the United States agree that it is important for people to support the small businesses that they value in their community. And whereas Paducah, Kentucky supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and make the value to their community. Whereas Paducah, Kentucky has advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the countries have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now therefore, I, Gail Kaler, Mayor of Paducah, do hereby proclaim November 29th, 2014 as Small Business Saturday and urge all the residents of our communities to shop and buy and support all of these small businesses that we have here in our community. And I know Commissioner Wilson certainly supports
Absolutely.
that. So,
All of us.
and one more thing we have before we start our business part of the meeting. I asked Andrea Underwood to come here tonight and to talk about Christmas in the Park, and to introduce also a special guest that you have here tonight. So if you'll talk a little bit about Christmas in the Park, and then we'll introduce our special guest.
Sure. Mayor, Commissioners. It's nice to follow all of this good news. We are next Friday at 5:30, a week from this Friday, we will turn on the lights at Noble Park for the 18th year for Christmas in the Park. And we're very excited because we think we have reason to expect a good year. And we should surpass a really nice milestone this year, because in the last 17 years we've raised $496,000 in cash donations with Christmas in the Park and more than 600,000 pounds of food. So we should surpass the $500,000 mark in donations. And we do that with the help of about 200 community volunteers and the help of various city departments who help us with things like traffic control and setup out there. And we have a couple of interesting things that'll be going on, additions to that this year, the event. John's Pass Carriage Company will be out there, and they will be doing carriage rides under the lights, which is a really nice experience. If you've not done that, they were there last year, and if you've not done that, I encourage you to do so because it is a really special experience. But also this year we have a new partnership with the Paducah School of Art and Design, and we asked them to create some sort of lighted art creation for us, and they've done that. And they've been soliciting videos from community members and put together in a way that will be projected on the amphitheater out there. And we think it's going to be a really interesting, nice element that will add to the displays that we already have out there, but will also highlight just the talent and what they're doing there at the art school. And so we really appreciate the support of Paula Aho, the director there, and Cody Arnell, who is the sculptor in residence. So those are nice additions. And I also this evening want to, you mentioned our special guest, and that is Eric Bierkant. And for the last several weeks, he has been at the park installing those lights. And we have to start in October to get all of those up in time for the lighting ceremony that we'll have, which is always the Friday after Thanksgiving. And Eric, he is a Paducah Power retiree, and he's just a great guy, and I cannot say enough about him. So I'm very pleased that you wanted him to come this evening and be recognized publicly for what he does. So, Eric, if you'll step forward.
So last year when we did the Christmas lights in the park. I asked Eric if he would be willing to serve as the Grand Marshal of the Christmas Parade this year. So Eric is going to be the Grand Marshal of the Christmas Parade this year, and I'm so happy to have you in that role. So thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Come on up, we'll shake your hand.
He's very shy about recognition, so I'm glad he's getting publicly recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So let's get on to our business part of the meeting now. Commissioner Abraham, please, with motions.
I move that the following bids be received and filed. Bids for Engineering Public Works Department, purchase of 11 vehicles for use by the Police Department and the Fire Department.
Second.
Has everybody looked at the motions? Mm-hmm. Right. City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt? Aye. Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye. Appointments. Whereas, subject to the approval of the Board of Commissioners, I hereby appoint Kelsey Couch to replace Stephen Smith, who has resigned as a member of the Paducah Human Rights Commission. This term will expire February 25th, 2017.
I move that the Board of Commissioners approve the recommendation of Mayor Taylor in appointing Kelsey Couch as a member of the Paducah Human Rights Commission.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt? Aye. Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye. Municipal order. Commissioner Rhodes, please.
Upon recommendation of the city manager, the Board of Commissioners of the City of Paducah order that the personal changes on the attached list be approved.
Second.
Hi, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Just one pay adjustment on your agenda this evening. Or any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt? Aye. Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Taylor?
Aye. Ordinance introduction, so we don't vote on this tonight. Commissioner Wilson, please.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid of Linwood Motors for sale to the city of 9 vehicles for use by the Paducah Police Department and 2 vehicles to be used by the Fire Department, authorizing the possible purchase of up to 2 additional police vehicles prior to June 30th, 2015, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The city of Paducah accepts the bid of Linwood Motors in the total amount of $320,748 for the purchase of 9 vehicles at $29,738 each for use by the Paducah Police Department and 2 vehicles for use by the Fire Department at $26,553 each. Approves the purchase of up to 2 additional police vehicles at a unit bid of $29,738 for use by the Paducah Police Department in the event the city may need to purchase additional vehicles prior to June 30th, 2015, and hereby authorizes the mayor to execute a contract with Linwood Motors for the purchase of the vehicles.
Seconded.
Rick?
Mayor Commission, this is just a portion of your fleet plan that where the Engineering Public Works Department goes out and purchases the replacement vehicles for the various departments of the city of Paducah. The one caveat to that, the 2 vehicles, sometimes we lose a vehicle in the line of duty, so those vehicles need to be replaced rapidly. So we put that in place in the order that, there's an accident and a vehicle gets totaled and we need to get it replaced. And then the other 2 vehicles in the fire prevention office is just replacement of the vehicles that are being retired.
Okay. And these are local?
Yes. Linwood out on Highway 60 is a local dealer here.
Chief, do you want to?
I'm just doing questions if there are any.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
I'd only say it's unfortunate that that all the bidders didn't respond correctly, and that it doesn't it does make for good management when we are limited to what we can buy. I'll just leave it that way. It's just unfortunate.
Well, it happens.
I guess bids are bids, when I used to do these things at our store, I've been on both sides of that issue, so I get it. Just eliminates a lot of choices.
It's difficult for us as managers as well, Commissioner, but we need to be consistent, I guess, with the bidding process in order that, I guess, all of the vendors see that we try to exercise that and not make exceptions.
I agree. It's just unfortunate.
Okay. All right. We'll go to our workshop now and the future of the existing City Hall. Pam?
Mayor, Commissioners, let me get my presentation going here.
I'm going to get some oil for my chair.
Okay. The City Hall project, this is a topic that we have been talking about for the last, I guess really in full force for the last year and a half. And then we did have a public engagement process over the last couple of months. So we want to kind of summarize what has happened over the last year and a half, the process that has gone into this, and then summarize the citizen engagement and some of the comments, and then hopefully we'll get to maybe a couple of decision points at the end of this presentation. Well, up to this point, how did we get to this point? In May 2013, this is when we really started talking really in depth about the City Hall project. There was a budget workshop that we attended May 2013. You may remember City Engineer, Public Works Director Rick Murphy showed several pictures of City Hall. They were interior and exterior photos that showed the spalling concrete coming down from the canopy, the deflection at the corners of our canopy, which is that large porch area that we have. The deflection is the sagging that's at the corners. We looked at the HVAC system, the dated interior, and after that presentation, that led to a recommendation that we need to do a spatial needs study. We need to dig deeper into this existing building. Well, that happened over the course of between May 2013, then we moved forward to May 2014, from 13 to 14. In May 2014, at your City Commission meeting in that month, you had a presentation by Backus Oliver with Markham Engineering, and we had several other representatives of Markham, as well as Bacon Farmer Workman Engineering and Peck Flannery Greenman Warren. They teamed together to analyze this building, all the different components of this building, and do a spatial needs analysis. And they gave you that presentation in May. They started by looking at the building's history. Back in 1978, we were already noticing a sagging of the building corners in that porch area. A deflection of 5 inches was noted in 78, and then it has progressed until it's almost 9 inches at one of the corners. They also did a needs assessment of the building's structure, its layout. They looked at security. They looked at seismic upgrade requirements. And that's when we started talking about the terms of an essential facility versus a non-essential facility. And non-essential is what this building is categorized. It's a civic building. But when you have, say, a natural disaster, what building do you want to have open when everything else may have a problem? An essential facility is more of a building that your emergency responders would be able to work out of. When everything else may have an issue, an essential facility has the seismic standards and the upgrades, and that building should be open. This building is not designed that way. It doesn't have those seismic upgrades in it. We got lucky during the ice storm that this building was what we were operating out of. We had power. We were able to operate out of it, but it is not classified as an essential building. And then we also just talked about general renovations of the interior, the dated decor that we have, the dysfunctioning between departments and things like that. They also did a spatial analysis. We needed to know the size of this building, how much we were using, and if we had outgrown this square footage. This is approximately a 61,000 square foot building, and we're using about 55,000 square feet. We have a lot of storage space that we're using, but we are utilizing about 55,000 square feet. In the spatial analysis, when they went and interviewed every single department and asked them, how much space do you need? What kind of conference area? What kind of greeting area? Well, we need about 53 23,000 square feet or so. So we haven't outgrown the square footage. We just have outgrown some of the technology, different things that are going on in this building. But we haven't outgrown. This is not a situation where we need a bigger facility for what we have existing in City Hall. Also that day, there were some very pointed statements that were made. You may remember Backus Oliver was the engineer doing the presentation. These were some of the statements that were given in that presentation. The building does not meet modern seismic standards. Okay, we understand that. Well, to do that to make it modern and seismically upgraded, it requires significant new bracing to withstand an earthquake, and to do that, it's invasive building enhancements. They were talking about bracing that would have to go from the basement up, and to do that, you've got to replace some of the exterior walls. Our floor-to-ceiling windows would not stand, so it would take a lot of work to make it seismically enhanced. They also said this statement: the canopy, that's our overhang that's over our porch area, is overstressed well beyond acceptable limits. Now that led, within that presentation, not long after that, we limited our access under that canopy. The public and employees enter City Hall from the 5th Street side, not the 4th Street. 4th Street has got more of the concrete spalling. 5th Street side is a more improved right around the entrance. But we also have limited anyone from getting onto the porch area. Even when an employee goes under there to do some maintenance on some of the landscaping, the planters that we have, they wear hard hats. They just want to make sure that they're safe, and we want to make sure everybody's safe. They said our plumbing, electrical systems, HVAC have all exceeded their lifespans. Then they got into what does it take to bring this building up to a standard that we would like to see. And that involved looking at a demolition of our roof canopy and replacing it with a lighter structure, because we have tons and tons of concrete up there, bringing this building up to a seismic standard, do the structural repairs that it would take, architectural renovations, and what that means is redo the interior, make it a better flow for the employees and for the citizens, and do the mechanical and electrical renovations. 20% contingency, because you don't know until you start digging into a building what you're going to find, and then there would be a 20% in indirect costs. Those are permits, your engineering design fees, and other things like that. This was the number that you saw that night, $15.6 million, to completely rehabilitate this building. That didn't include any costs for temporary space, because we would have to leave this building temporarily for it to be completely enhanced. Okay, moving forward from there, in June, at your June Commission meeting, we had a presentation that the city manager did about the process. Where do we go after seeing that kind of presentation? What is the process of moving forward? So there was a large flow chart, and that's on the next slide. I'll show you that flow chart again, that showed a relationship. You've got relationships between your citizen engagement and some major decisions on whether to renovate this building or maybe pursue another option. And the goal was discussed about implementing a citizen engagement system so that we can look at the community values, look at the judgments, pull all that into the project. Quickly, here's that flow chart. I know it's almost impossible to read from this distance, but the right side of the flow chart is the citizen engagement and all the different values that we want to discuss in pulling together a different City Hall future. At the very top, you've got to make, first decision is, do you need to move forward with the City Hall change, or do you not? Can you keep going on with what we have? After you make that decision, then it's, do you build something new, renovate something else, or renovate this building? And then as you go down farther, it is a flow chart of decisions that are related to each one of those choices. That decision, after we saw this flow chart, the decision was, let's talk about values. Let's start deciding what values we want to see for a City Hall project. So in July, we had the workshop. Remember the workshop we had in the basement of City Hall, where we involved all the elected officials in addition to city staff. We rotated between different tables, spent a few minutes at each table, and discussed each one of those values. And we picked 5 values that really encompass every aspect of a municipal type building. You want to look at the image. You want to look at the customer experience. Is it a functional building and workspace? You want to look at sustainability and just siting, location. So basically anything that you can think of with discussing a municipal building, you can put it in one of those 5 different values. Well, after our value workshop, where we all put in our input, we wanted to talk to the citizens. So we started a citizen engagement process. It lasted 6 weeks. It pretty much started right after that workshop. We provided a Facebook page as well as an email address that were dedicated just to collecting these comments. Anybody could provide their comment through email as well as that Facebook page. We received phone calls, and I had a few handwritten letters, and a couple of people just stopped by the office to give me their thoughts. So we incorporated all of that into this. Every week, a news release was sent out focusing on one of the 5 values to keep the issue in discussion, to keep people thinking about it. And we actually had really good support by the local media for this whole process. For example, during that 6-week period, we had 4 articles and 2 editorials just in the Paducah Sun. So the media really embraced the fact that we were trying to get the citizens' input on this. We ended up with 103 total comments, and those 103 comments were sent out in your packets Friday. Small font, 9 pages long, lots of information, and I was so impressed with the comments. They weren't just like quick phrases. People put some time, they put thought and energy into writing a really well thought out comment, and they were paragraphs long. We had 80 different people making comments, so some people commented almost every week. Every time I'd send out a news release about a value, they would send me their thoughts. So we ended up with 103 really well thought out comments. And just a quick summary of some of the comments under each value. The first value that I sent a news release out was image. We were asking people to think about what message should a city hall building communicate. And in this value, this is where a lot of folks, if they are in love with this building, they would let us know. Or if they wanted us to look at something different, they let us know. So here's just a few of the comments. One person who really likes this existing building, she said, "I know I am home when I see City Hall." Another commenter said, "This is a significant piece of mid-century architecture." Then other folks wanted to see something a little different. They wanted to see something that was progressive or sleek, modern, an architectural masterpiece. Those are just some of the phrases they threw out. Others mentioned a traditional design, looking at downtown architecture as an example. And then other people mentioned more of just the feeling that you should have when you come into a city hall, just the invitation, the warmth that you should feel, not something grandiose, but something that's engaging. So we had a variety of comments regarding image. So 33 people, or 33 comments regarding just image. Customer experience. That value, we were asking about what can we do to improve the service delivery that we have within City Hall. Think about things like access to records, parking, hours, the layout. Didn't get as much of a variety of comments. Most of them centered around handicap accessibility. Several people said that it is a long walk from the street to try to get into City Hall. We have a long accessible ramp. We have stairs. Some of our offices are on the upper level. So accessibility was something that they mentioned. A reception area, others said when they walk into City Hall, if they're not used to this building, you're not sure exactly where to go. It is kind of a big square on the inside. And then I had a couple of people saying, think about just trying to make things more convenient for customers in the fact of maybe one-stop shopping, such as maybe be able to pay a utility payment at City Hall, or maybe something that you would pay at the courthouse at City Hall. Just try to make it more convenient for folks. The next building, or the next value, functional building and workspaces. This is where we were asking questions about what kind of efficiencies should we be looking for, what kind of security issues should we be looking for, flow of space. Several comments about wasted space. There was a thought that the existing building here had some wasted space. They said definitely whatever you do, make it very functional for the citizens as well as for the employees. Consider other departments that are not in City Hall. Had some folks make comments that maybe you want to pull in some other departments. A couple of people said whatever you do, allow for growth. Don't limit the space, maybe allow for a little bit of growth, a percentage of growth in the future. Regarding security, we didn't get too many comments. We had a couple, but they said controlled or monitored security, but we don't need anything at courthouse level, is what they said. Sustainability. On sustainability, we were asking about basically Efficiency of heating and cooling, what are your thoughts about that? Should we look at the LEED certification, which is a tiered certification that has to do with how efficient your building is? Several people said, look at the LEED certification. Some said, don't go ahead and pursue it all the way. Some said, maybe pursue a little bit of it, but look at LEED. But definitely be energy efficient, which we're definitely going to look for. Consider seismic sustainability. Several people said, whatever you do, make sure the building is seismic ready. And then this is the comment that, or the value that if anybody was interested in cost, this is where they said, be fiscally conservative. So we had a few people said, well, whatever you do, just make sure that you're conservative with taxpayer dollars. Now, the last value had to do with siding. We were looking to see if you could pick any location in Paducah, what would you think is the best location to have a city hall? And kind of tell us why. Well, the answers, we only had 19 comments, but they can be grouped into 3 specific categories. The first category is look at all the property that we already own. Look at our city-owned land and see what options would be the best. Another category is look at the Civic Center zone. That is where we are right now. The Civic Center zone encompasses from basically the courthouse towards City Hall, over toward the post office and library. This whole area is called the Civic Center zone. Several people said this is a good location. Stay in the Civic Center zone. Either look at rebuilding or renovating this building right on this site. Maybe look at Dolly McNutt Plaza. A lot of people like the library area, the post office area, the parking lot at 5th and Clark, which is our employee parking lot. So some people said this is a good zone to stay in. And then the third group of comments said look at something along Broadway. Is there a building along Broadway that you could see as a value to moving City Hall to, such as maybe the Kresge or the Catterjohn? I even had a comment about looking at the empty parking lot at 2nd and Broadway. Look at the building at 13th and Broadway. So there were several spaces along Broadway that people suggested. And in the process of all of this feedback, we were able to pull together a little bit of information. If you just ask the question, renovate existing City Hall or pursue another option, we didn't ask the citizens directly that question, but based on their comments, you can pull some information from that. 64 people out of the 80 people who provided us a comment actually told us exactly what they thought about that. 72% of those folks said build new or pick another building. Only 28% said renovate this building. So it was a majority saying don't put the money into this existing building. And that's where I think right now we're going to stop and take a look at this decision point of are we ready to make a decision on this? So I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Pam. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
So, I guess it's open for discussion. You talking about making a decision tonight?
Well,
or just discussing it more?
We are interested in whatever direction the commission is prepared to provide, and essentially each of those decision points, once made, either puts us on a pathway or eliminates other pathways or both. So an alternative would be to take off in a multitude of directions, expending a lot of time and a lot of resources, and then coming back and say, what do you like? And clearly that's your decision on how you want to do it. But that would certainly not be the most efficient way to do it, and there would be some time elapses. So we felt that on this particular decision point, which is, you recall from the flow chart that I presented that was up there tonight, this was the second decision. I think the first decision was pretty much a given after the feasibility study was released that we had to do something. So the question is, are we prepared, based on reflections you've had, data that was presented by the consulting engineers, and the input we received from the citizenry, to make a determination on this particular issue. If you are, and for example, we're prepared to direct us to move forward with something other than a renovation, then that would put us sort of on a couple of pathways simultaneously, it seems to me. One would be looking at existing buildings anywhere. Another might be beginning the design process for a new build. Granted, that's dual pathways and maybe not the most efficient way to go either. So, quite frankly, depending if you're prepared to make a decision on this issue, if you are prepared, for example, to direct us to look at something other than renovating this building, I would encourage you and suggest even tonight that we take a look at another potential decision-making point right after that, and that has to do with the question of where. And I say that because based on information that we've received that you saw up here on the siting option, and I think just a lot of precedent and establishment with this facility being in this civic plaza, that I think there should be some focus put on the civic plaza area as a location for a new city hall going forward first, before we would potentially take off on a hunt for where other options might exist, whether they be new builds or even renovations. So if I'm wrong about that, feel free to tell me that, hey, the Civic Center Plaza is not a compelling consideration, but I suspect that it might be, and if so, let's get that up front, because we might be able to proceed much more efficiently, at least for a period of time, if that is the case, and you would, for example, determine that that is where you would like to see City Hall be in the future.
Do you want me to show that slide, that next slide that kind of summarizes what you said?
I don't remember the next slide, but
the next slide has the two locations. That remain in the Civic Center zone. There is a value of maintaining a government center or expand siting options, which would require a development of a siting criteria. You would have to somehow rank your siting options.
Yeah, and I don't want to take the commission past that earlier decision point, but just to illustrate this, to remain in the Civic Center zone after first having made a decision not to renovate this building would, I believe, essentially be a new build somewhere in the Civic Center zone or in close proximity to it, and by that I mean some expanded Civic Center zone. Expand siting options outside of that is something that is a whole process in itself that would require, in my view anyway, at the onset, developing a set of criteria for what is important for the siting decision of City Hall, and probably assembling a team around that to identify potential sites and vet them according to that criteria. That could be a fairly lengthy and involved process, as it should be, just to make you aware of that. So again, if you are of a mind tonight to take a look at this issue after first looking at the one before that, we would be very happy to have that discussion occur as well.
Just, I'll jump out there. The plaza zone, I think, is, for me, is a logical place to rebuild. It also, earlier when we talked about the effect, let's say we moved it, what effect that would have on the neighborhood, wherever that would be. I think that's an issue. Also, we had our police and fire. We talked about that aspect of the police department needing to be upgraded. The fire department, I think if we're looking at to remain in the Civic Center zone, will be an opportunity for us to expand this zone, actually, where it is, and to take care of a couple other things. I was really excited that we that we reached out to the community to get their input, and they responded. And if you, that 72% was interested in where it is right now. So I would encourage you guys to focus in on where we are right now, with also with the possibility of enhancing our fire department and police department in the same location. I think that's something that eventually, if we're gonna make a move like this, I think it would be in our best interest to look at combining those two projects. Otherwise, we're gonna rebuild City Hall, and then what? Look for another spot to build the fire department and the police department. So I would go with the our Civic Center zone where we are.
Carol?
I think there's a lot to be considered. Exactly what Commissioner Abraham said. That's the confusing part for me. We've talked about doing something with the fire department and the police department, and knowing that they have to be centrally located because of their service areas, those kinds of things. When I look at the 72% says build new or renovate another building, they listed a lot of buildings here, primarily historic buildings, and I wonder if we would be in the same situation given seismic codes that we would be with this building. So given where we are, I think we need to take that into consideration. Go back to that essential building and the emergency services, whether we want it to be ground zero, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, can I comment just briefly a little bit with respect to those other two, because I think that's a fair question, and granted we have not brought that forward in this context, nor have I discussed that combined project with the chiefs for a while. But with respect to the Civic Center Plaza, concerns I would have for that, if it were to include both fire and police as well as City Hall, one would be simply the size of the footprint. I mean, we're talking about a lot of square footage and a lot of surface area, which, to Commissioner Abraham's point, little doubt would require probably obtaining some additional property in there. A second concern I would have, if it were to certainly include the fire department, would be that that location may well not meet many of the criteria that we would have for the fire location. I think that it's been stated to you once or twice, given some time ago, that the emphasis location-wise for the fire facility was more towards the western end of town. Third thing I would say, and when I make these points, I'm not just brainstorming as I speak. They come as a result of several conversations with a lot of the affected parties, and that would be police and fire. Let me first take a half a step back, and starting with the recognition that somewhat to our dismay, and I think Chief Barnhill would agree with me on this, when we did look at existing joint police and fire builds, we didn't find the spatial efficiency and space sharing that we'd hoped to and thought we might. It was a little disappointing in that sense, although we, I think, harbored some thoughts between he and I and Chief Kyle that maybe we could do better than what we had seen done in some other locations. But having said that, if the police and fire joint build were not to occur, or for various reasons we decided not to do it or set it aside, and were to consider one or the other along with City Hall, there's not much question in my mind that the one that would emerge most quickly would be the police, for a lot of reasons. So it might be more manageable to consider the potential for a joint build to include that facility, and maybe develop our thinking a little bit more around that one, at least as a possibility. I think the fire thing complicates it quite a bit.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Well, I don't think we had really made a decision on that, Commissioner Abraham, yet about moving the police and fire in with that, in with this. I mean, it's been
No, we haven't.
we talked about it, so that's not a
talked
decision
about it.
we had made yet.
No, and I wasn't insinuating that we had.
Right.
But we're
That's a separate
brainstorming
decision.
here.
Right, so that would be a separate decision, and we really don't have a price on what it would be to build a new building. I mean, we haven't done a study on that. So it's hard to say without having any kind of estimate on what it would be.
Well, just something to think about is the Murray State Building.
Right.
And what was it, $8 million?
It was, well,
You mean on a City Hall only building? I think we did have a preliminary figure kicked out there. I think we're basing, what, $250 a square foot, something like that, maybe a little higher than that. So 10 to 12, 5, depending, yeah. But that, I mean, that was just square footage applied towards best guess at how much square footage.
So, and then, whether or not we tear this down, build here, whether we build on an adjoining lot and then let this stay, and so people stay in this building until they can move in the new one, then we tear this one down, which then would give some opportunity if we tore this down for police and fire, or police, whatever, if we wanted to move down here later.
Do we have a cost in that for tear down? Any ideas on? Okay.
I did see one comment in here about turning this building into a really cool art museum of some kind. I don't know who would fund that, but it was, an opportunity there for someone that could renovate this building at $15 million and turn it into a really cool art museum for the city of Paducah.
I know that it works because I know of the same design sitting in the center of Nebraska that is a museum.
By the same architect.
Yeah.
And it looks very similar to City Hall. Was it a prairie museum?
Yeah.
Museum of the Prairie
Mhm.
in Grand Island.
So again, maybe to take you back to the question, are we in a position tonight to answer the question of whether or not renovation of this facility is an option that you want to consider? If it is, I might then come back next week and take a look at other options and say, do you want to consider those too, or do you want this to be the focus? But again, to the extent that we can begin to narrow this down, we can streamline our efforts and resources and, again, move a little quicker if the thought process on your part allows for that.
So, to your thoughts about, we don't really know what it would cost us to build a new building, because included in that new building would be the cost of tearing this one down, tearing this one down along with that. If we didn't have the property that belonged to us, we'd have a purchase of property. So if we're just basing our decision on cost savings, I think it's hard to make that decision.
I think that another essential point that came out, and I mean, we can come back and sort of relook at the work that the consultants did before, but one of the poignant assertions there was that to renovate this building would not give us the advantage from a design standpoint of starting anew. There would be some constraints that we would have to work within, and some limit to what we could achieve, I think, in a number of areas. And folks, when we're talking about building a public building for 50 years, and we're talking about money that's not too much different than new build. In fact, as I recall, the projected cost with the seismic, at least of a renovation to maximize what we could, was more, I believe, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, than a new build. So if that proves to be the case, then that bang for the buck, if you will, from a new design that gives us a blank slate to work from is probably better.
I don't think we need to get ourselves in a box, though, that we're doing the cheapest thing.
Right.
I think the decision needs to be more holistic on why we would say, let's do something else. Let's tear this one down and do a new build. Commissioner?
I've got about 5 points and I've thought about it for a long time. First off, we ought to build something on our own property. Let's eliminate the cost of going somewhere else to buy somebody else's property. Sorry. I think we probably ought to be in the civic area. I do not think we should build it on Dolomite Plaza Park because that just adds more expense. I think we should attempt to stay in this building until you get the other building built, so you move once. And I think what drives me in building a new place is the years of ongoing efficiency that I just don't think are going to be possible with this building. Even though I love this building, but I don't think in my heart or in my head that we will ever achieve just year after year of just, heat, light, and power and making an efficient building, and both in the way we operate and those fixed costs. And I guess the last thing is that for me would be that people would say it's kind of like the porridge, is it too hot or too cold or just about right? That at the end of the day, I would want the citizens of Paducah to say, yeah, you got it right. It's efficient. It looks good. You didn't get carried away. You didn't say, well, since we're going to do this, we might as well do this. And I've kind of had these thoughts pretty much for a long time, and so I'm going to put it out there and say that's what it is. So you can let me have it on the hate mail and everything else if you don't agree with me. That's okay. But that's the way I view it.
Well, I think we also need to base our decision on conversations. Honestly, this is not an overwhelming response from the citizens of Paducah, for what we had. They had everybody had the opportunity
to participate.
Could have.
Right.
So it's more than we need to base it on more than just what we've heard on this.
Well, we need to know what that is.
Well, my opinion, I'm like Alan. I've always loved this building, but it's an energy hog. It's very inefficient. It was built in an era when ADA compliant didn't exist. The bathroom doors are narrow. The stall doors are narrow. There's just a lot of things here that need to be changed, and you change that by having a new building.
Yeah. So having said that, I think these our department heads are looking for marching orders on where to go.
New building.
We talked about a more functional building when we met for the next. We're talking about a building that's gonna be able to be used next 45, 50 years.
Longer than that.
Or longer. So I'm all fine with maintaining where we are as far as the plaza is concerned, building a new structure, and as far as any of those other add-ons, we'll look at that and what fits, we fit it in there.
Yeah, there would be some, I think that would be very close to the point where we would engage some consulting, in some design, and there would be opportunities for public input in that along the way. Of course, I can't identify exactly what they would be, but it's a very process-oriented thing, as well as, of course, a lot of input from department directors, particularly on the prospect for other departments, either within the building or alongside it in a joint build thing.
I think we need to look at what a new building would cost. We know what it would cost to renovate this one. We don't know what it would cost for a new one.
Okay, then I think we need to get into a design mode, and if that's the direction you'd like to provide, obviously, at some point we would bring back a contract, consulting contract for that. But if the commission has a consensus on that point or both of those points, then whatever you could do to formalize that so that we had documentation that in fact that was the direction that came from this body in this venue, I think would be very helpful.
So you're saying you need a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Right.
Would you read the motion back, Madam Clerk?
I'll let you know what the motion is.
Let's find that motion.
Commissioner Abraham, do you want to state your motion?
Yeah.
I move that, okay, hang on a second.
I like putting her on.
All right, I know what I want. I just got to put it into words, guys, all right? I move that we move forward in looking at construction of a new building and everything that goes along with that.
Location.
At the plaza, at the Civic Plaza site, present site.
But can I ask a question during that? Is it a motion to look at the cost? It's not a motion to move into a new building. It's a motion to look at the cost.
No, it's a motion to.
Well, it's a motion.
Decision to.
How about to put the focus
Build.
on that in the effort or something like that? I think what we would do.
Go ahead.
This past, Rick and I had huddle up and others and maybe talk to a few people out there about, okay, what does this really mean process-wise, and we'd come back and give you a little more detail on that. Excuse me?
Okay, to move forward with the process of looking at the cost of rebuilding City Hall here in the Civic.
Okay.
Paducah Civic.
That would be before we'd make a final decision, which way we're going.
Yeah.
It's just to explore the next.
I mean, I'm comfortable with combining the whole thing, but out of just
there are a lot of
respect to my fellow
decision points
commissioners,
that would
I think you
follow.
guys want to look at the cost before we vote finally on what we want to do.
But I just want to point out that in so doing, I mean, I'm hoping I don't think we're hearing that we want to have a very, very limited engagement and come back with a very speculative cost. I mean, I maybe should ask for some clarification. If not, we would come back with some kind of a scope for consulting that would, in fact, begin a design process that would.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Get a comprehensive cost and functionality worked into it. Rick knows the words for those things better than I do.
This decision is just tear down or build. So then once we decide we want to build, then they bring all the other back to us.
This decision tonight is not tear down or build.
This decision, as I understand it, is not to renovate this building, but to look to construct a new building in the plaza.
Correct.
So we would come back with, some
cost
steps
estimates
about how to do that.
and what's all involved in that.
Can we include in the plaza the city-owned parking lot between 3rd and 4th and Kentucky?
I think we consider that in the plan.
There's the Civic Plaza extends from, I guess, Clark Street all the way over to Kentucky Avenue, all the way up to 7th or 8th Street, 3rd Street. The Civic Plaza is a several block area that's here, but direct your attention to this flow chart here. We're kind of right here, okay, in the flow chart, and we're trying to get to this area here, Commission, where before we can move forward, we need to at least be able to understand whether or not we are to look at the renovation of this building or whether we're looking at reconstruction of a new. All of the things that you're looking for will be ferreted out in other decisions. For example, if we do look to build a new building, we're going to get a preliminary set of plans and specifications, or a preliminary set of plans that are going to render a preliminary cost estimate to bring back to you, okay, for that. Now, that preliminary cost estimate will propagate some more decisions that will be put in front of you, because then you'll be saying, okay, we're going to go and compare that back to the renovation of City Hall. We won't be so deep into it that it's a point of no return. However, the cost that comes back might be such that you've got room to consider some other areas of government that need help. For example, there was a presentation on 911 building and IT and police department. What is there room for? Okay, when we get to that point, you might be down here in this area of the flow chart of saying, hey, we have some additional room down here that are other decision points that you all are going to be making as we go along the way. We just need to make some progress so we can start in some, reasonable direction to bring you back answers that you're looking for that we don't have right now.
Right.
This would keep us from going down these two at the same time.
Yes.
All the resources.
Yes.
It actually takes us down to this location and at least gives us a broad location, eliminating a whole lot of geographical area, and puts the focus on the government plaza, which is a great help in terms of narrowing the focus.
So a lot of the questions that we have right now will be answered as we go through this process.
Absolutely, because that's why we've developed the flow chart, because we're going to have to come back and forth for these things to move forward, because there might be some things come up price-wise that we're not prepared for right now.
Yeah, and there's some financial issues. I don't think there's any question, Rick, this initial contract for design is going to have to come back for you. It's right. Going to require your approval, so we will be back with you before any. It's your decision to proceed.
It could be a contract that's to create a preliminary design concept of the building as we know it today, and develop a preliminary cost estimate, and then say, okay, what if we were to include these others in that? What would the cost escalate to?
So the motion would be more that we're going to explore the next phase, which would be building a new one. It's not the final decision that we're moving to a new building.
Right.
It's exploring that option.
Well, no. We have to make a decision on, are we going to build a new building? Are we going to renovate and keep this building?
But we don't know what a new building would cost.
But we've got to make a decision on whether to build new or renovate and keep. And then we go through all these processes, and we make that decision as we go down.
The information presented indicated that it would cost more to renovate this building than it would to build new. Am I correct in that?
Right.
By some measure.
I remember that.
Well, and it did, and we used the Murray State building, really. We kept going back to it as a comparison. It's about the same size.
Modern square foot, I guess, comparison analysis.
Maybe the way to look at it would be, since we've gotten Bacon Farmer Workman and their conceptual opinion of costs, then, I mean, the way I look at Richard's motion is then we'll sort of say, okay, so what is the conceptual opinion of cost of building a new building? And from there, then we've
got a very high estimate of costs of building a new building. I don't think there's much information difference between the basis for those two estimates that was in that earlier study. I would view this as going forward in the direction of a new design with checkpoints back to you for you to make further decisions if you want to proceed.
So are you looking at a difference of savings of renovating this building at $15.8 million and comparing to, we estimate, a new building at around $10 million? So are you looking at about a $5.5 million difference?
Based on what the information provided us, we'd be looking at a significant difference.
Because a $5 million savings influences my decision more than a $500,000 or $1 million.
Let me kind of address that a little bit. Apples to apples. The function of this current building right now, with all the departments that are currently in here right now, if we were to make a comparative analysis of the square foot we need for this building as we know it today, the savings would be significant of between the 10 and the 15 million. Okay, you get that savings. Now, I've heard numbers, big numbers, as much as 22 million for a joint city county, a city police
fire
establishment. That's largely dictated by its location because of the fire services zone and being able to respond in the West End. Okay, that's where you have real high real estate values. And a footprint for that is driven by real estate values as well. What I'm saying is you could have economies of scale and savings by combining other departments with City Hall that are not tied to the fire department that has to be in the West End for response time. Mm-hmm. So there's other areas of savings for future buildings. Now, if you were to make those comparisons of the 10, which just the 10 million of what we have here, served here, and then say, well, you know, we could maybe bring in another department here, save some money there. Now, maybe that cost of that new building does go up to $15 million as a new building, but you have a whole lot more in that building that is.
You would offset it with savings.
Offsetting costs.
As well as efficiency going forward.
We're not there yet. That's lower in the flow chart. We're not there yet.
Makes sense.
So that's some of the thoughts.
But until we have those numbers, we can't know that.
Until you have those numbers, you don't know that. But as far as City Hall as we know it today,
Right. We do know that.
We do know that.
Right.
It would still come in under savings, though, where you're talking about savings, and I think I said 15.8. Looks like it was 15.6 million is what the estimate was for renovating this building.
Yeah.
We guessed at a building a new building at 10, which could have other savings, even if it made the cost of the building go higher.
Correct.
Clearly, in the opinion of the professionals, the square footage cost of building new was less than to renovate, and I think that's the basis we proceed.
Okay. It always is. Okay. So do we have that in a motion?
Say that again clearly to me. I'm so sorry.
You weren't writing down? You weren't writing this down?
To make the motion to look into building new
Yes.
in the Civic Center.
In the Civic Plaza.
I think which is the downtown area where we are
Yes.
in this general
The Civic
facility.
Plaza
Sometimes
as
when you say
defined.
Civic Center area, you don't want to confuse
Well,
that. It's not
the Civic,
out, it's down here.
Well, the Civic Plaza as it regards the PowerPoint that we
Rick.
just saw right here.
You might bring that back up, Pam.
Rick, do we want the word design in the motion? Just proceed with some level of design?
Preliminary design.
Preliminary design. It covers it.
No.
But it is not a final decision, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, we can go back and renovate the building if you want.
I don't want to read the headline tomorrow. We're, moving.
This slide kind of from our planning and zoning maps. This is identified. This boundary here is the Civic Center zone, whereas this is City Hall where it currently sits on this block, and it could be anywhere in this blue area, or expanded beyond that blue area, but somewhat just in this general vicinity here.
I think we've got it.
Okay. Thank you. Now, do we have the motion?
Okay, we're going to build a new building in the Civic Center Plaza and proceed with a preliminary design. Is that correct?
I don't think that is.
Proceed with preliminary design to construct
About.
a new build in the Civic Center Plaza.
Yeah.
How's that?
Or how about
That's what we're moving forward to is the
possibility.
decision to. We're not making that decision tonight. We're making the decision for the preliminary
either
design.
Give them direction that we want to build a new building or we want to renovate.
You're allowing us to put our resources into one pathway here and
Yes,
to focus.
yes,
Possibility
yes.
of.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, for the possibility of. I think that needs to be in there, Tammy.
Where do you want that at?
Well, if you flip what you said at the last to the beginning,
Okay. So, we're going to build a new building.
flip that. That's at the end.
Okay. So proceed with a preliminary design to construct a new building in the Civic Center zone.
That's what needs.
Is that right?
Yep.
Good?
It's exciting.
Yeah, that's
Okay, you're making that motion.
that's why we got 5 people up here. Right.
Who made a second?
6.
Was the word
Alan,
possibility in
did you make a second?
there?
Alan did, actually.
You said?
I said the word possible.
I think the possibility.
Where did you want possibility
We don't
at?
need possibility in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want me to read it?
Make
Guys
it more
ready?
clear cut.
I'm good with it if you guys are good with it.
Okay. All right.
To proceed with the preliminary design to construct a new building in the Civic Center. Rick's saying no.
No, I'm him.
Oh,
He's getting a massage.
okay.
No marks.
In the Civic Center zone. That's what the motion is.
Yes.
You're good for introduction, or is this a?
No, it's just a motion. So we just vote on it tonight. It's just a motion. It doesn't mean it's a law. It doesn't mean you have to do it. It means you're still able to go back.
We
and-
cross our fingers.
It's just formalizing what we want
This is not a first
Just
reading.
giving,
done.
you're
Giving
just
the
giving them
department
direction
heads
of which path they
direction.
want to, they need to take.
There will be a consulting contract come back before you before we expend any dollars outside of the city staff for this. So, in case,
So that way we will better understand.
well, as well as having another decision point,
You got to be able to scope the work for
a consulting contract. Yeah.
to bring back to you
information you desire.
Sounds like it's the first step of a 1,000-step journey.
Okay.
That's Grasshopper.
Well,
You guys ready?
Are you good?
Yeah. Are you good?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Commissioner Galt.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, city managers report.
Briefly, request executive session for economic development.
Any commissioner comments tonight?
I have a couple.
I do too. Go ahead.
Okay. This is regarding the, I sent you an email regarding department heads attending the
Right.
the commission meetings, and sometimes things get lost in translation.
Yeah.
In emails. So I just wanted to, for the rest of the commission, to feel where I was coming from with that. Most of the time, if a citizen, well, let me back up. We have 4 public meetings a month, and for the public. So if they want to come down and hang out and listen to how we do their business, that's fine. Every now and then we have folks come down here after exhausting their efforts to solve whatever issue they're having with their property or neighbor. They come down here for us to give them some kind of relief. If that happens, and a particular department head can give a little bit more insight on their problem or their issue, and they're not here, then we'll have to say, well, we'll get back to you. Well,
City manager.
right, well, that's the last thing they want to hear, because they've gone down that road already. Now we had a situation before. We had a situation last Tuesday where a lady had tried to solve an issue, wasn't able to do it for her. The city manager said, well, we'll get back to you. The next day, we had our guy out there looking at the situation, and it worked. I don't think it's a stretch. This is not a punishment or meant to be any type of inconvenience for our department heads. But if we're going to formally meet as a commission, and we only meet 4 times a month, then I don't think it's unreasonable to expect our department heads to be here for those meetings.
Well, I mean, I think as often as they can be, but sometimes they're out of town. Sometimes they may have a family emergency. So,
Well,
I mean, as often as they can be.
Well, I mean, I understand those reasons. What you're saying, those are reasonable.
Right.
Those are reasonable reasons. But that's kind of loose. So if they're out of town because of what's going on with meetings, if they're out of town, they're out of town. If a child is sick, any of us that have children, we understand that. If there's a ball game that pops, you really need to be there. These are professional people. I get that. But as a rule, they should be here.
I think there's a distinction between what might come forward, whether it's policy related or administrative related. I think you potentially had one of each last week, and I think the first one was more in the administrative realm, and in fact there were at least 2 levels in the administration that were not sought out, and those engaged the next day as they would have under other circumstances. The other one was somewhat a matter of satisfaction with what the existing ordinance would allow to happen, and maybe there wasn't the satisfaction available. We're researching that right now. That's the noise thing. So potentially something like that could involve a policy change. However, prior to that point, we had not decided or had cause to explore the ordinance or have it looked at to determine whether there was any more discretion or capability to pursue the complainant's issue within it, and we're doing that right now.
So what are you talking about? Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Exclude that, both of those incidents. Just take them off the table. The issue that I'm talking about here is having the department heads here when we meet. Period.
How do the rest of you all feel? Do you think we need to have all the department heads here every?
So how many are we talking about? 5, 6?
There's 1, 2, 3. There's 4 here tonight, and then there would be Steve and the human resources.
We've got more than 4
finance.
here. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean.
Personally, I would.
And Pam. Well, we got 5 here. I guess you're a department head, Pam, or you're just a department.
You're just a.
Go ahead.
I would choose not to have the department heads here every Tuesday night. I just think about, when I was at the dealership. I mean, it just always worked better. Listen to the customer, get their side, talk to at our store, talk to the department manager, and kind of quietly go through it, and just sort of take the time to make a good decision. I don't think to have all the department heads here every Tuesday night, so we can instantly get to a resolution. It's not the way I would do business. It's not the way I would do it.
Well, you're talking about private business. Well, this isn't private business.
But that's the way I look at it. That's
well, you can't look at it that way because it's anything that we talk about up here is taxpayers' business.
Well, I'm saying, Richard, it would work best for me, just being for me. Is that
okay,
person comes in, talks, and then we talk to the appropriate department manager and get to a solution that way.
Let's talk about last week. Okay, if Rick had been here, could Rick have given her an instant answer? Probably not, but he could have said, I apologize that we didn't call you back. We'll go out and look at it. He could have done that.
But basically, that's what the city manager did, and ultimately it stops with him.
Okay, we can decide what we want to decide. For me, we only meet 4 times a month. That's it. We're not talking about 30 people in here. We're talking about 5 or 6 people. And I don't see a problem personally with professional people being in.
They probably wouldn't mind being here if they can be here. I mean.
Well, then.
Would you, Rick?
I think it's different. They're here when they're given a report.
Right.
I mean, we do see them all here. It's the difference in requiring that they be here or expecting them to be here when they give reports.
If we required them to be here, what would be wrong with that?
City Manager, is it your expectation that if they have something on the agenda that they're here?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I mean, if they're going to present,
I guess I'm fine
with
that.
It's also my professional belief that when we engage the citizenry that we put the best foot forward, and that would not necessarily be the case if a department director were asked to impart on something that they were not aware of or not prepared to deal with. And to Ellen's point, in this setting, which can be rather stressful, rather expectant, and not necessarily the best road to resolution.
Well, I think that would do a couple of things. One, if I'm a department head and I'm making sure that if we're getting calls in my department, I'm making sure that whoever answers those phones are passing that information on to the appropriate person, and we're dealing with whatever that issue is. I don't want it to get to the point where that person has to come down to City Hall, and then it's awkward.
If this is a matter of accountability, Commissioner, that accountability is from them to me. I can have that same expectation for responsiveness, and I do. And, I apologize if something fell off on any of those last week or ever before, but I want to assure you that's in place. That's in place.
I just never operated our business, and I was for 27 years at the dealership, I was the complaint department, if you will. And when somebody came to me, I listened to them, took notes, talked to the department manager, but I never put everybody together in a closed room. It's just not the way we ever did it.
That's because you had a private business.
But
this is not a private dealership.
Well, but that's my orientation.
Okay.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. I would not choose.
Well, I don't think it's a
to have the
stretch.
commissioners. I mean,
I don't think it's an inconvenience, and I think it should be expected. So.
I wouldn't choose to have them all here every Tuesday night if I were the decider.
Well, we can vote on it.
You would or
Yes,
you
we
wouldn't?
can.
We can vote on it.
You said you would or you wouldn't?
I would not.
So if Commissioner Abraham wants to bring this to a vote, then do we need to have a new ordinance in place requiring them physically be here?
It's an municipal order, isn't it?
Well,
I mean,
Would that need to be a city ordinance, a municipal order, what?
that's how.
I have not had precedent to deal with this issue. I couldn't advise you based on past experience or
Probably be part of their
knowledge what you'd
employee
have to do here.
Well, I mean, we don't
responsibility
need,
too if we were to change it. I mean,
we don't need.
I don't really have a
over here
problem with the way it's
to take care of
been.
this, do we? I mean, that's a housekeeping type of.
Why don't you vote on it to see if you have support for it, and we'll figure out how to do it.
let me ask this question just to get over this hump because I know we have people back there waiting. And I don't want to speak for you,
Okay.
but what if they're available to come and they can come, let's say on the nights that we have meetings, not workshops, the expectation would be that they're here. If they can't, end of.
Yeah. Well, this is starting to sound like it's.
I'm trying to split the baby there just because.
Well, if they couldn't be here,
Well, let's
then
say-
would you want someone within their department to be here to speak for them?
I think the public deserves at least that. I mean, it sounds like
That's
this
what
is.
we're here for.
Right.
The city manager.
We're not ducking an issue. We're going to get back to the public. There's not a question of that. But I just never found that making a quick decision was always the greatest. I'm going to say you should lengthen the decision out, but I think we're perfectly capable of going to the department, for the Jeff go to the department and say, hey, what about this, that, and the other, and make a decision and go. It's just not the way I would choose to do it, and I've never done it that way.
Well, if the department heads can make it, this thing is turning into. This is not a slam on a department head. This is just an order of business that they would be here when we met. We meet, we see them, they see us.
I think we've talked about this
4 times a
before,
month.
too. Haven't we? Recently, maybe within the last 6
Because it's not something that the department heads are not used to doing. Since Jeff's been here, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have not directed them any different than what was in practice before.
We had.
So how many people here think it's important that all department heads attend every meeting, not just the meetings, but the workshops as well?
Well, I do. I think it's important.
I think it's important that they do be here, but I just don't think you're going to get them here all the time. I don't. But I do think it's important for them to be here when they can.
But no hard, fast requirements.
I don't know that you can do that.
We're just asking the department heads to be here when they can.
I disagree.
I think, to me, it's worked fine that they're here when they're giving a report.
I do too.
And if a question comes up that can't be answered,
get back to them.
For example, I mean, Jeff answered it, and I would hope that you all have been addressing those concerns. And I don't want somebody to come up here and ask us, to tell us they've been calling and not been getting response. Yes, the department head should be responding, and I'm guessing that Jeff has directed that would happen. But to make it as an employment requirement, which is what that would be doing. I think we'd have to talk to the individuals. I mean, that they probably weren't hired or promoted or whatever with that understanding that they have to be here every time the city commission meets. That's what you would be doing, really, is making an employment requirement.
Okay.
You'll make a much better decision quietly talking to somebody than being here with lights, cameras, and actions.
Well, I totally agree, but it doesn't always work that way.
Well, then you know, as long as the question gets answered and the problem gets solved, I just don't think this is the way to do it.
I mean, if we had 3 or 4 people coming to every meeting, but you know, how many times do we have that?
We don't. I mean, that's the point. Mm-hmm. We don't. But when that happens, and then we don't have that particular department head here, it's awkward. It's awkward for us because they're looking at us like, I think in the email it said the buck stops with the city manager and his oversight. Well, the buck stops with us, period.
Richard, and I know I refer to the car business a lot, but it was my life for 27 years. But for 25 years, well, give me a pass in the first 2 years. I was too green. But people would come up and say, look, I've got a problem about this, that, or the other, and I'd like to discuss it with you. And it worked really well that I took notes, and I said, look, Mr. Abraham, I'll get back to you. And so I'd go talk to the manager, whoever the employees were, and then I got back, and that worked really pretty well. And that's the way we did it, and I don't think we offended anybody, and I think we got to speedy resolution. But I don't think it's going to work. It would not work to me in my previous life of having kind of this group of. It just. I get it, and I was quick about it. I mean, I don't want the problems to pile up. In one case, I was trying to stall it off, not at all.
No, it's pretty clear, and we'll leave it like it is. We'll expect these guys to be here when they can. I think that's pretty much what you guys are saying.
That's why I'm not saying that, because if you say, well, when you be here when you can, well, then the implicit message is, well, you better be here because you're going to get talked about if you don't. I just don't think that's productive.
That's pretty much the way it is now, isn't it?
Well,
they're here when something's on the agenda.
If something's on the agenda, then you can be here.
But if you're not,
I'm fine with it as it is.
Oh, I'm okay the way we are.
Okay.
All right.
Who has the executive session tonight? Read.
Commissioner Abraham.
I got it. I move that the board go into closed sessions for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topic: a specific proposal by a business entity where public discussion of the subject matter would jeopardize the location, retention, expansion, or upgrading of a business entity as permitted by KRS 61.8101G.
Second.
City Clerk.
Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Commissioner Galt.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Okay, we will not.
Yes.
Mark,